Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching.
In the cold silence of space, mistakes are measured in civilizations. The recording began with static, then cleared to reveal Ambassador Thelvas of the Corvian Collective, his four eyes gleaming with what could only be described as satisfaction. His chitinous face clicked rhythmically as he spoke into the diplomatic channel, addressing the assembled representatives of 73 advanced species. The humans, he said, his translator rendering his words in 17,000 languages simultaneously, have agreed to our terms. They will surrender their claim to the Orion frontier. They will dismantle 30% of their fleet. They will accept our trade restrictions. He paused, mandibles spreading in what his species considered a smile. They believe we are negotiating in good faith. Across the chamber, holographic representatives flickered with approval. The Zephrani matriarch pulsed with bioluminescent pleasure. The crystalline architects chimed in harmonic agreement. Even the warlike Drakan, who respected little, nodded their massive heads. Only one voice dissented. "This is a mistake," came the warning from Admiral Kesithar of the Viridian Defense Pact. Her reptilian features were stone still, but those who knew her species could read the tension in her neck plates. "I have studied them. The humans are not what you think they are." Thelvas waved a dismissive claw. "We have all studied them, Admiral. 200 years since first contact. They are soft. They negotiate. They compromise. They speak of peace and cooperation." He leaned forward. "They are weak, and now they are ours." What none of them knew, what they couldn't have known, was that in a darkened observation room aboard the human diplomatic vessel Lasting Peace, 7 people sat in absolute silence, watching the transmission. 7 people who had heard every word. 7 people whose expressions had slowly transformed from diplomatic neutrality to something far more dangerous. Captain Sarah Chen of Earth's Intelligence Division was the first to speak. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through the room like a blade through silk. "How long have they been intercepting our secure channels?" 3 months minimum, replied Commander James Torres, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface. "They've been reading our reports, our assessments, our fleet movements, everything we've shared with them in good faith." He looked up and his eyes were cold. "Everything we've shared with them in negotiation." Ambassador David Okafor, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, sat with his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles had gone white. He had spent 15 years building relationships with these species, 15 years believing in the possibility of genuine cooperation, 15 years of his life, and it had all been built on lies. "They think we're weak," he said quietly. "They think we're stupid," corrected Dr. Lisa Yamamoto, head of the Diplomatic Corps' Xenopsychology Division. "There's a difference. Weak implies physical limitation. Stupid implies we don't know what's happening." She pulled up another display, showing the full scope of the Council's deception. "They've been systematically misleading us about territorial boundaries, resource rights, trade protocols, the restrictions they want us to accept. They would essentially make us a client state within 3 generations. Would you believe me if I told you that humans had been waiting for exactly this moment? That somewhere in the depths of Earth's military command, contingency plans had been drawn up for precisely this scenario, that we had learned, through centuries of our own bloody history, to hope for the best but prepare for the worst." Captain Chen stood, her military bearing evident in every movement. "We need to contact Earth Command immediately." "No," said Ambassador Okafor. Everyone turned to stare at him. He looked up, and there was something in his expression that hadn't been there before. Something that would have terrified the Galactic Council if they could have seen it. "Not yet. First we give them a chance." "A chance?" Commander Torres sounded incredulous. "David, they've been lying to us for—" "A chance to understand what they've done," Okafor continued. His voice was steady now, diplomat calm, but underneath it was something else. Something ancient and primal that humans had never quite evolved past. A chance to realize their mistake. A chance to run. In the vast council chamber, the species of the galaxy celebrated their victory over the naive humans. They had no idea that the prey had just become the hunter. The message was delivered 72 hours later. Not through official diplomatic channels, not through the elaborate protocol systems the Council had established. Instead, It arrived simultaneously on every council member's private, secure, supposedly unhackable communication network. The message was simple. 3 words in every language of the council. We know everything. And then, before any of them could respond, a second message followed. This one was a video. It showed Ambassador Okafor standing alone in what appeared to be an empty room. No weapons, no threats, just a human in a simple suit, hands folded calmly before him. To the distinguished members of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice carrying none of the warmth they had grown accustomed to. We received your transmission, the one you didn't mean for us to hear, the one where you discussed how best to deceive us, how best to manipulate us, how best to make us weak. He paused, and in that pause 73 species felt the first cold finger of doubt traced down their spines. I want to tell you a story, Okafor continued. It's about my species, about humans. You think you know us, but you've only seen what we wanted you to see. You've seen our diplomats, our merchants, our artists. You've seen us smile and negotiate and compromise, and you mistook all of that for weakness. The view shifted, showing images from Earth's history. Battles fought with primitive weapons, cities in flames, soldiers standing in trenches in deserts, on beaches stained red with blood. We are a species, Okafor said quietly, that survived an ice age with nothing but stone tools and fire. We are a species that fought thousands of wars, developed weapons capable of destroying our own planet, brought ourselves to the brink of extinction multiple times, and somehow always found a way to step back from the edge. Not because we were peaceful, not because we were weak, but because we learned to be strategic. More images. This time of Earth's industrial revolution, its digital age, its expansion into space. You've had faster-than-light travel for 10,000 years. We've had it for 200. You have energy shields perfected over millennia. We developed ours in 3 decades. You think we're behind you? He smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. We're not behind you. We're running a different race entirely. The transmission showed new footage now. Human ships, not the diplomatic vessels the Council had seen, but others. Sleeker, darker, moving through space with a precision that seemed almost alive. You intercepted our communications. You read our fleet movements, our strategic assessments, our diplomatic cables. Okafor's voice dropped even lower. Did you really think we didn't know? We've been fighting information warfare since before we left our planet. We've been deceiving each other, spying on each other, running psychological operations against each other for thousands of years. And you thought we wouldn't notice when you did it to us. In the council chamber, Ambassador Thelvas felt his breathing spiracles tighten. Around him, other representatives shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the soft, cooperative human they had come to know. Those communications you intercepted. Okafor continued. We wrote them for you. Every fleet movement you tracked. We wanted you to see it. Every strategic assessment you read. It was designed to make you confident, to make you certain, to make you believe you had won. The implications crashed through the council like a wave. They had been played, manipulated, deceived by the very species they thought they were deceiving. But here's the thing, Okafor said, and now his voice carried an edge that could cut through steel. We didn't do this because we wanted to trick you. We did it because we wanted to know the truth. We wanted to know if you were negotiating in good faith, if you were truly our allies, if the council we had joined was built on trust or treachery. He leaned forward, and every species watching felt the weight of his gaze. You answered that question, and now we're going to answer yours. The transmission changed again. This time it showed star charts, territorial boundaries, resource allocations, trade routes, but the numbers were different from what the council had been showing the humans. These were the real numbers, the honest assessments, the truth that had been hidden. We're releasing this data to every independent news network in council space, Okafor announced. Every species will know what you tried to do. Every civilization will see how you manipulate new members. Every world will understand that the council isn't built on cooperation. It's built on exploitation. Can you imagine the panic? 73 species, each one suddenly realizing that their carefully constructed deception had not only failed, but had been turned against them. But Okafor wasn't finished. However, he said, and that single word carried the weight of hope and threat in equal measure, we believe in second chances. We believe that mistakes can be corrected. We believe that even when trust is broken, it can be rebuilt. He straightened, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the authority of not just one man, but an entire species behind him. The human delegation is withdrawing from council space. We are rescinding our agreement to your terms. We are recalling our trade vessels and our diplomatic staff. And we are giving you a choice. The star chart behind him shifted, showing new boundaries, new territories, new rules. You can acknowledge what you've done. You can restructure the council to actually serve all species equally. You can prove that this was an aberration, not a pattern. And if you do that, if you genuinely commit to change, then in 1 year's time, we will consider returning to negotiations. He paused, letting that sink in. Or, and his voice went cold again, you can try to stop us. You can try to enforce your fraudulent agreement. You can try to bring your fleets against ours. And if you make that choice, you will learn why humanity didn't become the dominant species on our planet by being weak. You will learn what we're really capable of when we stop being diplomatic. The image zoomed in on his face, and every being watching could see the absolute certainty in his eyes. I want to be very clear about something. We don't want war. We have fought enough wars. We have seen enough death. We came to you in peace, hoping to find equals, hoping to find friends, hoping to be part of something greater than ourselves. But we are not so desperate for acceptance that we will tolerate deception. We are not so naive that we will allow ourselves to be exploited. And we are not so weak that we will surrender when we are wronged. He took a breath, and his next words would echo through the galaxy for generations. You had a choice. You could have had humanity as an ally, as equals, as partners, as friends. Now you have a different choice. You can have us as an example of the Council's reformation, or you can have us as a reminder of what happens when you underestimate Earth. The transmission showed one final image. It was the human fleet, not the 30% they had agreed to dismantle, but the full strength of Earth's defensive forces. Hundreds of ships, thousands, all of them running dark, hidden throughout the Orion frontier, positioned at key strategic points that would have been impossible to predict without years of detailed planning. This is what we didn't tell you, Okafor said quietly. While you were reading our fake communications, we were deploying our real forces. While you were celebrating your deception, we were preparing for this moment. While you were underestimating us, we were making sure that when the truth came out, we would be ready. The ships began to move, their weapon systems coming online in perfect synchronization. It was a display of military coordination that should have been impossible for such a young species. It was a demonstration of capability that rewrote every calculation the Council had made about human strength. You wanted to know what humanity is capable of? Okafor asked. You wanted to test us? You wanted to see if we were strong enough to stand among you? He smiled, cold and certain. Now you know. We are strong enough to stand among you. The question is, are you wise enough to stand with us? The transmission ended. Silence fell across the council chamber like a shroud. Ambassador Thelvas stood frozen, his 4 eyes wide with something that might have been fear, or might have been awe, perhaps both. Around him the other representatives were motionless, processing what they had just witnessed. Admiral Kesethar was the first to speak. I warned you, she said quietly. I told you they were different. I told you they were dangerous. Dangerous. The Zephrani matriarch's lights flickered in patterns of confusion. They offered us peace. They offered us another chance. That, Admiral Kesethar replied, is what makes them truly dangerous. A species strong enough to destroy us, but wise enough to offer mercy. A species capable of such sophisticated deception, but choosing to reveal it rather than exploit it. A species that can turn your own trap against you and then offer to help you escape it. She pulled up the star charts showing the human fleet positions. Every tactical analysis ran in her mind, every calculation of force projection and strategic capability. And every single one of them came to the same conclusion. If they had wanted to, she said slowly, they could have struck us weeks ago. Those ships have been in position for at least a month. They could have crippled our infrastructure, seized our key installations, held our trade routes hostage. They had us completely vulnerable, and they did nothing. Nothing. Thelvas found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. They exposed our deception to the entire galaxy. No, corrected the crystalline architect, its tones chiming with new understanding. They exposed the Council's deception. Many of us, it paused, many of us did not know about your plan, Ambassador Thelvas. Many of us believed we were negotiating honestly with the humans. And now we discover that our Council, our unified government, has been operating in secret, manipulating new members, violating the very principles we claim to uphold. The implications rippled through the chamber. The Council wasn't just facing external pressure from the humans. It was facing internal collapse as species realized they had been kept in the dark, used as unwitting accomplices in a conspiracy they never agreed to. And that, perhaps, was the most brilliant part of humanity's response. They didn't just defend themselves. They didn't just reveal the deception. They fractured the very system that had tried to exploit them. What do we do? Someone asked. The question hung in the air, heavy with consequence. Admiral Kesithar pulled up another display. This one showed historical data, patterns of human behavior across their centuries of recorded history. We learn, she said. The humans have given us something precious, a case study in their strategic thinking. Look at this pattern. Throughout their history, when they are betrayed, they respond with overwhelming force, but only against those directly responsible. They have a concept they call proportional response. They match the level of aggression they receive. She highlighted specific examples. When attacked militarily, they respond militarily. But when attacked diplomatically, they respond diplomatically. They've shown us their strength, but they haven't used it. They've positioned their fleet, but they haven't fired a shot. They've exposed our deception, but they haven't demanded reparations or territory or tribute. They've asked for reform, the architect chimed. They've asked for honesty. They've asked for the Council to become what it claims to be. Thelvas slumped in his seat, the weight of his failure crushing down on him. They knew. From the beginning, they knew what we were planning, and they let us proceed just to see if we would. They tested us, Admiral Kesthar confirmed, just as we tried to test them. The difference is we failed and they passed. What would you do in the Council's position? You've been caught in your deception. You've been outmaneuvered by a species you thought was inferior. You've been given a choice between reform and conflict. What would you choose? The debate that followed lasted for 3 days. 3 days of arguing, recrimination, analysis, and soul-searching. Species that had been allies for millennia found themselves on opposite sides. Factions emerged, dissolved, and reformed. Some, led by Thelvas and his supporters, argued for military action. We cannot let them humiliate us, they insisted. We cannot let a species barely 2 centuries into spacefaring civilization dictate terms to us. But they were in the minority. Most of the Council, having seen the truth of what had been done in their name, were horrified. The Zephrani matriarch led the reform faction, calling for immediate restructuring of Council governance. The architects used their mathematical precision to calculate the exact probability of success in a military conflict with humanity. 7%. And that was before factoring in potential defections from Council species who disagreed with the war. Admiral Kesithar presented the most sobering analysis of all. She had spent the 3 days studying everything humanity had revealed about their capabilities. She had run simulations, consulted with her best strategic minds, and examined every angle of potential conflict. Her conclusion was simple and devastating. If we go to war with humanity, we will lose. Not eventually. Not after a prolonged conflict. We will lose quickly and decisively. And the reason is not their technology or their numbers. The reason is their mindset. She displayed a quote from human military theory, something called Sun Tzu. All warfare is based on deception. Hence, when we are able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must appear inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make him believe we are near. They have been doing this to each other for thousands of years, Kesithar explained. Every major human civilization has texts on strategy, on deception, on psychological warfare. They've been fighting wars of information and perception since before they had writing. And we thought we could deceive them? She laughed, bitter and sharp. We are children playing at games they mastered before they left their planet. The Council voted. The result was overwhelming, 64-9 in favor of reform. The 9 dissenters, led by Thelvas, were removed from their positions. An independent tribunal was established to investigate the full scope of the deception and ensure such abuses could never happen again. And then they did something unprecedented in Council history. They sent a message to humanity, not a diplomatic communique, not an official statement, but a simple, honest acknowledgement of wrong sent from every member of the Reform Coalition directly to Ambassador Okafor. You were right. We were wrong. We will change. Will you help us? Aboard the Lasting Peace, the human delegation read the message in silence. Captain Chen looked at Ambassador Okafor. Do we trust them? Okafor was quiet for a long moment, staring at the flood of messages appearing on his screen. Hundreds of them, thousands, from individual members of dozens of species echoing the same sentiment, apologizing, asking for guidance, requesting humanity's input on the reforms. Trust? He said finally. No, trust is earned, not given. But he pulled up the voting record, the tribunal appointment, the specific reforms being proposed. They were good reforms, real changes, not cosmetic ones, transparency measures, oversight committees, representation requirements. Everything was designed to prevent exactly the kind of deception they had attempted. But, he continued, we can verify. We can participate in the process. We can hold them accountable. And maybe if they genuinely commit to this change, if they prove through action rather than words that they mean it. He looked up at his team. Maybe in time we can build something real. Something worth believing in. Dr. Yamamoto was analyzing the psychological profiles of the messages. They're scared, she noted. Not just of our military. They're scared of what they've learned about themselves. They saw their own system, their own government lie to them. That's a fundamental crisis of identity for civilizations that pride themselves on unity and cooperation. Good, Commander Torres said bluntly. Fear is a motivator. Fear of returning to that dishonest system might be what keeps them honest going forward. Or, Captain Chen countered, fear could push them toward desperation, toward trying to eliminate the source of their embarrassment. Then we'll be ready, Torres replied. The fleet isn't going anywhere. Not for a while. Okafor made his decision. We respond, we engage. But cautiously. We send advisors to help with the reforms, but they operate in public with full transparency. We share our own history of governmental reform, of constitutional development, of how we've struggled with and overcome corruption in our systems. We offer the Council something they don't expect, genuine cooperation, but on terms of verified honesty. He began composing the response, his fingers moving across the holographic keyboard. And we make it clear, this is a one-time offer. If they betray us again, there won't be warnings. There won't be second chances. There will only be consequences. The response went out 6 hours later. It was broadcast on every channel, open to every species, transparent in every detail. Ambassador Okafor appeared once more, but this time his expression was different. Still serious, still carrying the weight of what had happened, but with something else. Something that might have been hope. To the species of the Galactic Council, he began, we have received your messages. All of them. We have seen your votes. We have reviewed your proposed reforms, and we have decided to accept your offer. There was a collective sigh of relief across Council space. Ships that had been quietly positioning for potential conflict stood down. Governments that had been preparing for war shifted their resources toward reconstruction and reform. However, Okafor continued, and the galaxy held its breath again, we need to be clear about the terms of our engagement. Humanity will return to Council space. We will participate in the reform process. We will share our knowledge and experience. But we will do so with our eyes open and our guard up, he gestured. And the display behind him showed the human fleet, still in position, still ready, still watchful. Our military will remain deployed in the Orion frontier, not as a threat but as insurance. We will verify every reform, observe every change and ensure that the new Council lives up to its promises. And if we discover any further deception, any continuation of the old patterns, any attempt to return to the exploitative systems of the past, he paused. Then we will know that you are not capable of change and we will act accordingly. But then his expression softened just slightly. However, we genuinely believe in the possibility of redemption. We believe that mistakes can be learning opportunities. We believe that even broken trust can be rebuilt with time, effort, and consistent honesty. So we're going to give this a chance. We're going to work with you. And we're going to hope that together we can build a council that actually lives up to its ideals." He smiled, and this time it was real. "You see, there's another concept from our history. It's called trust but verify. It means we will enter this process with good faith and positive intentions, but we will also maintain the capability and willingness to act if those intentions are betrayed. It means we want to believe the best of you, but we're prepared for the worst." The transmission shifted to show a different kind of image now. Not fleets or weapons, but people. Humans and aliens working together on various stations and ships. Scientists collaborating. Artists creating. Children of different species playing together in mixed colony educational centers. "This is what we want," Okafor said softly. "This is what we came to the stars hoping to find. Not conflict, not deception, not domination or submission, just cooperation. Just partnership, just the chance to be part of something larger than ourselves, while remaining true to what we are." He looked directly into the camera, and every being watching felt the sincerity in his words. "You tried to trick us. You failed. But in failing, you've given us the opportunity to build something better, something honest, something real. The question now is, will you seize that opportunity or will you waste it? The choice," he concluded, "is yours. But choose wisely. Because humanity has a long memory, and we never make the same mistake twice." And so began the Great Reform, a period of 5 years during which the Galactic Council completely restructured itself under the watchful eyes of humanity and other reform-minded species. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks and challenges. Some species, unable to accept the new order, withdrew from the Council entirely. Others, inspired by the reforms, applied for membership for the first time. The balance of power shifted, old alliances crumbled and new ones formed, but through it all the humans remained constant. They verified. They observed. They offered advice when asked and stayed silent when not. They shared their own failures and successes with remarkable honesty, teaching the Council that admitting mistakes was a strength, not a weakness. Admiral Kessathar became one of humanity's closest allies in this process. She had been right about them from the beginning, and her understanding of their strategic thinking made her invaluable as a liaison. She often said that the humans had taught her something important. True strength isn't the ability to destroy your enemies. It's the ability to turn your enemies into allies. Ambassador Thelvas, stripped of his position and facing investigation for his role in the deception, spent his remaining years writing a memoir. It was titled The Species That Taught Us Humility, and it became required reading in diplomatic academies across Council space. In it, he wrote, "We thought we understood power. We thought we understood strategy. We thought we understood civilization. And then we met humanity, and we realized we understood nothing. They showed us that true civilization isn't measured by how advanced your technology is, or how large your territory, or how many species bow to your will. It's measured by how you treat those who are vulnerable, by whether you keep your word, by whether you can admit when you're wrong and work to make it right. We tried to exploit them, and instead they taught us how to be better. That is a power we never anticipated. That is a strength we never imagined. That is humanity." 5 years after the deception was revealed, the reformed Galactic Council held its first Universal Assembly under the new governance structure. Ambassador Okafor stood at the podium, the same podium where Thelvas had once announced humanity's supposed surrender. But the chamber was different now. More species were represented. More voices had input. More transparency and accountability were built into every level of the system. 5 years ago, Okafor began, we stood at a crossroads. One path led to conflict, to war, to the destruction of everything the Council claimed to represent. The other led to reform, to honesty, to the painful process of admitting failure and working to do better. He looked around the chamber at the representatives of 93 species, 20 more than had been present 5 years ago. You chose the harder path. You chose reform, and I'm here to tell you on behalf of all humanity, we see your effort. We acknowledge your progress. We recognize the difficulty of what you've accomplished. He paused, and the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. And so today, humanity officially rejoins the Galactic Council. not as naive newcomers hoping for acceptance, not as victims of deception, but as full partners, as equals, as allies who have walked through fire together and emerged stronger for it. The chamber erupted in sounds of approval, clicks, chimes, roars, songs, and applause. Species that had once plotted humanity's exploitation now celebrated their full integration. But Okafor wasn't finished. However, he said, and silence fell again, we will never forget what happened, not out of spite or vengeance, but because memory is how we learn. We will never forget that the council we first joined was built on deception. We will never forget that it took exposing that deception to create real change. And we will never forget that the price of freedom, of honesty, of genuine cooperation is eternal vigilance. He smiled, and it was warm now, genuine. The smile of someone who had fought for something and won. But we will also never forget that you chose to change. That when confronted with your mistakes, you didn't double down. You reformed. That when offered a second chance, you took it seriously. That is something worth remembering too. That is something worth building on. The human fleet, which had remained in position for 5 years, finally stood down, not disappearing, but integrating fully with Council defense forces, taking their place as one fleet among many, equals in the protection of shared space. And Ambassador David Okafor, looking out at the assembled species of the galaxy, spoke the words that would echo through history. You wanted to know what humanity is capable of. You tested us. You deceived us. You tried to make us weak. And in response, we showed you something you didn't expect. We showed you that strength isn't just about weapons or technology. It's about principles. It's about standing up for what's right even when it's difficult. It's about offering mercy even when you could offer destruction. It's about believing in the possibility of redemption even when you've been betrayed. He straightened, his voice carrying across the chamber, across the galaxy, across the void of space to every world and every species that had ever wondered what made humanity special. We are not special because we are stronger. We are not special because we are smarter. We are special because when the galaxy tried to break us, we chose to fix it instead. That is humanity. That is what we bring to the stars. That is what we offer to the Council and to any species willing to meet us as equals. We are the species that warns you. Run from deception, run from exploitation, run from the easy path of dishonesty. But run toward honesty. Run toward justice. Run toward the harder path of doing what's right. That is what we told you 5 years ago. That is what we showed you through our actions. And that is what we will continue to demonstrate every day we remain part of this council. The deception is over. The reform is beginning. The future, he smiled. The future is ours to write together. And this time let's write it honestly. The galaxy had learned its lesson. They had tried to deceive humanity, and humanity had warned them. Run from the lies you told yourself. Run toward the truth. Run toward something better. And in learning that lesson, the galaxy had become something better. Not perfect, not utopian, but honest, real, worth being part of. That perhaps was the most human thing of all, the stubborn belief that even the worst mistakes could become the foundation for something good. So what do you think? Would you have given the Galactic Council a second chance, or would you have demanded harsher consequences? Have you ever been in a situation where someone underestimated you, only to realize their mistake too late? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of humanity showing the galaxy what we're really made of, make sure to hit that like button. It helps more people discover these epic HFY tales. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about humans being the unexpected heroes, the underestimated underdogs, and the species that refuses to be anything less than extraordinary. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss when we post new content. The galaxy thought they could deceive us. They thought they could manipulate us. They thought we were weak. They learned otherwise. And that, my friends, is what HFY is all about. Until next time, remember, we are humanity and we never give up. We never back down. And we never ever stop believing that tomorrow can be better than today. See you in the next story.